Okay, so let's just get the charts up and running. So let's just get this. I could probably get them. Actually, no. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so let's see. Pull a file. Okay, let's see. I suppose I can use this time to see. Yeah, that sounds good. So let's look at. Hello, how are you? Okay, so currently I'm just looking up at Foosley's chart. Um, a colleague and friend of mine, we have been discussing on our findings in regards to the asteroid or planet candidate Orcus. Um, so our little conversation is we may have some interesting new theories in relations to its symbolism. The symbolisms that I am talking that we're thinking is that it may have something to do with regimes. From my personal findings on this particular celestial body, it's usually to do with advancements and growth, and usually of success of that nature, but it may have something to do with politics and regimes. So right now I'm going to be going through every single possible streamer and so forth, both from what is known and unknown, just to see if that symbolism does hold true with Orcus. So that is the general concept of one of the many steps that I'm going to be needing to do with testing and research. So pretty okay stuff. Nothing too, I guess, say wild or crazy or outlandish. Um, so just to give you also some additional information on what we be doing is how our testing procedures is done is, let's say we want to know what makes a super successful corporation. We'll look at the charts of tens of thousands of super successful corporations, and we'll look to see if there is a pattern. If a pattern is found, great. If not, oh well. But for argument's sake, let's say one was in fact found. So then, what is that pattern? And we'll be looking a little into that. Then we now repeat the process, but with tens of thousands of charts of companies that were just dramatic failures and see if there's a pattern among those. So after looking at these two different groups of celestial bodies, well, of patterns between these two sets, we would essentially start asking and do comparison tests. Let's say like we noticed Pluto popped up rather frequently. So then we will have a hypothesis in regards to Pluto if it has something to do with the massive success of these massive corporations. So obviously we're setting up tests that will either prove or disprove that hypothesis. But as a result, we have this excessively very accurate, that is statistically valid type testing and very unique form of astrology. And we have been doing this for 40 plus years with millions of charts. So let me just get back into see. That's what you know. Lilith. Now Ixion, leave in Orcus, because that's what we're focusing on. See, Senna, leave that in. EB313, also known as Iris. We'll be looking into Hermes, the Jupiter Chiron midpoint. We'll be looking into Vulcan. And just letting you know, with Volcano, that is a new celestial body I'm also currently working with as well. In the moment, I have some suspicions that it may have something to do with creativity or transformations of like pain and sorrow into something rather more positive or negative, depending on where it is. So I may be looking into that as well. So it's quite exciting. If you are oddly curious, you could probably submit your information as well, but I would not recommend that for the time being, due to I am not too sure exactly like what information you'd be interested in wanting to know about yourself or of others. And I could probably give you just quick little breakdowns on what those would be. Um, let's see, Hermes, UB313, Senna, so Orcus, Lilith, we have Juno, Pallas, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Venus. Okay, apply. Okay. So right now we have the synchronization or pattern that relates to all the points that interact with Fuseli's Orcus. So we'll be doing an additional little filter, which is just applying only. Reason why I am doing this is broken down to from our findings of over the past 40 plus years of our testing, is that when the alignment is applying, so that means when it's going to become exact or is exact, it is actually more likely to manifest of terms of the quality of those two symbols or whatever comes from those two symbols at all. So for Orcus, as I mentioned, it is of success, advancements, and growth. Again, may have suspicions of some political regimes or something like that. But usually with upgrades and dates, it is interacting with Pallas and Venus. Excuse me. So advancement and growth or prosperity in relations to Pallas. Pallas is in symbolism of like digital content creation, streaming, digital products and services, even entertainment in this case is also a digital product. So Venus is also of cash flow, so prosperity of cash flow or in relations of beauty. It is also in relations to like a minor form of success and even of luck as well. So we can see immense luck in this enrichment of growth within relations to streaming, or in this case, content creation, or even this gaming. So those are just some of the symbolisms that we can get just based off of those alone. When it comes to Orcus interacting with Lilith, Lilith is usually of, let me just double check. Yeah, that is Lilith. Lilith is an association of like of depression, rather being of like mopiness, the cloud over you that is constantly raining. It is usually of like sadness, um, seeing the world like gray, if not very just very dark and sad. Some positive, though these are very minors and bit of a stretch for my findings and a few other individuals. What we have found is that Lilith has associations with loneliness. So in this case, it could suggest that she could thrive in a lonely like environment, let's say streaming by herself. Especially if we take into consideration that it's interacting with both Pallas, Venus, and Uranus. Uranus is of the internet. And again, digital content creation online, making the money. If she does that by herself, she does rather well. And again, that is enrichment. That is enriched or very prosperous for her. With Lilith, I've also known, and again, this is a stretch, but when it comes to Lilith, I have noticed there is some occasions where this celestial body has a tendency of essentially being what is known as a quote demon. Now, in the technical terms, and this is how I've seen it used, is the term demon in technology usually refers to a background software or procedure that is done, and then it brings up something to the upfront. So, for example, let's say you are entering information into a software or system, it'll generate, take whatever information you just submitted, let's say your name, date, so, and it'll then translate that information into a sort of a document and then present the final document to you with that information you entered. That's essentially what Lilith would do in technology. So in this case, it could suggest that in the background, as Fuslie is working through her own stuff, whether it's content creation or something of that nature, it could contribute as well to the success of digital content creation, and again, helping with the immense luck, or help from the immense luck from that component. And of course, it's being online, so that's even more help as well. From this alignment, we can also identify Orcus is trying to UB313. UB313 is usually also known as the dwarf planet Eris. Now, in traditional astrology, Eris is associated with the concepts of like discord and destruction, or like anything of that nature or combination. But from our findings, actually, that is not uniformly true. In fact, we actually have found it to be a financial celestial point. And what that means is if it forms any like alignments positive, especially with any additional financial points, which it does, which is right here with Orcus, and also with the Jupiter Chiron midpoint. It also will be interacting with Neptune right here. Then the financial components is definitely amplified as well. UB313, or Eris, also has some strong associations with the concept of, let's say, what is new, what is distinctive, and what is basically trending or catchy. So in this case, we can see that what is new is what brings her ability to follow the trends or do something that is really new and creative can contribute to her prosperity. And again, these prosperity is due to long-term creativity, because Neptune symbolizes any and all things long-term, whether it's from the land itself or from the ground. Uranus, which is of high-end technology, the internet, and also is associated with globalization or popularity as well. So immense popularity across the land, or in this case, across the entire planet. And the trends that follow or she creates that is new, or follows what is new, will contribute to prosperity. And this prosperity, again, is in relations to making money as a content creator or of gamings, or something that she strategically planned or timed out well. And again, these also in relations to how she works in the background, or even how she may work by herself from time to time. This again will contribute to the prosperity, enrichment, and growth. UV313 is also interacting with the Jupiter Chiron midpoint, as I mentioned before. Jupiter Chiron essentially is the midpoints, in simple terms, is the power and influence of the two celestial bodies that create them. So in this case, it is Jupiter. So symbolisms of success, good luck, good fortune, the hortum plenty. And of course, we see alignments of Chiron. Now, in traditional astrology, Chiron is associated with the celestial body of the wounded healer. However, again, our findings have found no evidence or support for this symbolism at all. Instead, our findings have found out that it's associated with charisma, associations with like a good positive influence, success, fame, money, love, romance. It also has associations with soulmates or who one is more likely to marry. It's also of like very of hopeful and trust as well. So we can see here or getting a good idea that she has immense super ability of fame and success, along with also great prosperity, great marriage, and so forth. Or in this case, a great relationship because Chiron also rules relationships of any type, regardless if they're romantic, business, whatever. If it's some type of relationship, Chiron rules it. So in this case, success in the relationships that is rather new or distinctive or to help out with such areas. And again, these relationships will be very much long term. And of course, based on true, genuine trust or karmic like bonds. So, what that means is Fuseli would generate relationships where they felt like they known each other in the past before, whether or not that is true or not. That is what is most likely to occur with these various relationships. And if they do occur and manifest, it's definitely a long term like situation. Now, with my suspicions, of course, Orcus is interacting with Varuna, but it's separating, as you see here. It is creating that separating line. But nonetheless, I have suspicions that it's in relation to creative abilities or the ability to manifest and transform what is given or of some type of hurt. So what this could suggest, again, this is based on my suspicions alone, not any findings yet, is advancements and growth through her form of transformative process, an ability to creatively speaking work through it. And again, this will contribute to her success in her career, her success in how she chooses her free will. And of course, the creativity is in relations to what is new. So she is creating something new that would attract or have a good positive public image. And again, this will bring in prosperity. And again, this is in relations to helping her make money, especially online. And this will definitely help her in the long run. Now, we are now looking at Hermes. With Hermes, we found that this celestial body, me and another astrologer, we have found some strong evidence that has associations with mysticism and like the occult or like other worldly forces, where essentially whether or not it is a guardian angel, whatever the case, it's usually some type of mystical, if not higher like force of sorts that helps one or another out. So in this case, it could suggest like guardian angels of sorts working well in her favor and how she could work by herself, helping her identify what is new or trending, whether it's through messages, via dreams, or some other process. This also could suggest that any globalization or creative manner, especially in the long term trends, would work very well and fondly for her because of these mystical behind the working scenes. And again, this will lead to prosperity on its own because of this help, whether it's from ancestors, whatever the case may be. Now, we're looking into Saturn. Now, Saturn is actually a very interesting celestial body. Reason why I say this is broken down to the fact that Saturn is known to be rather unique, to say the least. And this uniqueness is broken down to it's rather two faced. In a birth chart, which is what we're looking at right now, it can show both positive and negative components all on its own. But it does have some rather unique rules when it comes to anything that is not a birth chart. So, what I mean is whether it's a event chart, current transits, progressions, or compatibility, any and all possibility of it being very positive and nice and influential is sort of very much just out of the window at this point. Now, it can manifest to being rather positive from time to time, but mostly it's very much a harsh negative alignment you need to be cautious with a lot of the time. But again, like I said, this is a birth chart, so the interpretations wouldn't be so much of that case. What we can expect is Saturn, in this case, is symbolism. It is symbolizing of immense structures, boundaries, practice make perfect type ideals. And in this case, this practice and perfection is helping her grow, especially in relations to being a better person or being viewed very fondly by the public. And of course, helping her create structure, whether she is working alone or doing some type of background procedure for some other additional process. And again, with the creativity, this could suggest that she practices her art rather frequently or practices to manifest the energy, whether positive or negative, again, into any creative like manner or perspective that she wants to be. And again, these additional disciplines of her will be interacting with in terms of her use of the internet or of high-end technology, popularity, and so forth, of working towards being rather well liked or have highly focused and disciplined mindset. That is also what this can suggest because it is interacting with Pallas. If we're talking about components of interacting with Juno, this could suggest that she may be somewhat rather much of a dreamer who may have a tendency of walk sort of misled by dreams or this creativity, the creative matter of another meaning of like working towards being a better person, creatively speaking, or being rather glamorous. Now, since I mentioned Juno, yes, it has symbolisms with glamour. It also has associations with dreams and also with social like magnetism in general. However, there are some negative components related to it as well because associations with addiction itself. It also has some associations with narcissism, delusions, both deluding others and deluding yourself, and many other components of the like. However, in this case, there's some caution because this can go negatively, but since many positive alignments are interacting with it in various ways, it is mostly in the positive lighting and seeing where it is potential, but overall very positive. So we could see that she is rather creative because again, it is interacting with Varuna, so immense creativity, especially with attracting the public. And this is more of a discipline that she had developed over the years, or could be very much that. And again, this creativity matter is definitely part of the, I guess you could say, the enhancement of her growth as well. Now, Juno is also interacting with Sedna. Sedna, in most cases, is what somewhat similar to Saturn. The only difference is it is much worse. Now, just to give you a general concept in what ways, is think Saturn of, let's say, the concept of being a prison guard. It doesn't hold anything accountable, but it will do its job and duty. With Sedna, it's more of the warrant, and it takes things completely emotionless. It just sees numbers and things of that nature, while Saturn will take things more on a personal level. So, if there is violent behavior, for example, Saturn is definitely more the personal component, while Senna is more of like there was no emotions connection. There's no emotional connection to that component. It's very you are in the way, and that is just your fault for getting attacked. That is Sedna. Not very ideal, I know. But in this context, Senna also has shown its patterns with like determination, success, and also like essentially being quote the goat or quote the boss or even other like leadership like tendencies as well because Senna usually goes for being the best no matter what. And those are some of the components of massive success for some individuals. And Senna is very much embodied of that component. So in this case, we can probably get an idea that her advancement and growth, especially when interacting with Senna, is broken down to like she wants to be ambitiously be better in terms of her creativity. She wants to be better or be one of the best as a content creator and also of course making money through it. She is working very hard towards that goal. And again, this is more of a discipline that's been self upon or self imposed in some form of way. That's sort of what Senna represents. Now, lastly, Wahala, which is right here. Now, with Wahala, from what I have found, is this celestial body is associations with things of courage and great valor. So it's very much like the inner strength so far from what my findings are. Now, with that in mind, that suggests that working alone or her depression, if it does manifest, is actually interacting or can be counterbalanced by her inner confidence and self esteem and courage, which, if done so, which again with Orcus is of enrichment, of advancement, refinements, and so forth, and improvements, her inner confidence is actually heavily amplified. And again, is components of like overcoming those negative thoughts and emotions is definitely the key for her prosperity. And again, those immense, great, that very high confidence level is definitely going to be something that's actually another driving force for her to be rather creating, if not following what is new. and actually very rather well. Was Valhalla, it is also interacting with Artemis, so this can suggest that she actually is rather brave or have some type of inner confidence and self-esteem with dealing with the mystical like ability of like the other world if it does come to her way. Also, again, with Wahala, this immense confidence and all that will contribute to her massive creativity as well. Um, so, those are just some of the interpretations that can come from this synchronizations. Do you have any questions? No? If not, I'm just going to go on over to the next chart. If you notice I have any charts that catches your interest, just let me know and I could pull that up. So let's see, we have gone through Fuslie. Let's see. Let's see if perhaps Ludwig. Okay, I'm gonna bring back all the celestial points just so we can filter out the pattern that is currently with Ludwig's. So this should just take a moment. Do not have his his time of birth. So I'm just taking out any point that could be sensitive to that. Okay, let's pull this up. Okay, let's see. Orcus, where are you? Let's see. Here it is in Leo. Let's take it to the heliocentric viewing. Now, just letting you know, in this type of science-based astrology, we usually take in considerations of multiple sort of dimensions. So, what these dimensions that we take in consideration when reading a chart is the geocentric longitudes, geocentric declinations, geocentric diagonals, heliocentric longitudes, heliocentric latitudes, and the heliocentric diagonals. And of course, for both geocentric longitudes and, well, geocentric and heliocentric longitudes, we look at two different, quote, sets of aspects, or in this case, we refer to them as zodiacs. So these zodiacs is the standard zodiac 12 and standard, well, the zodiac 7. General concept of what that is we break the zodiac, or in this case, the circle, into X amount of pieces equally. So with the zodiac 12, we break it down into 12 equal pieces. And then we use the angles, or all possible angles, that are formed when breaking it up. So in other words, we get 0 degrees, we get 30, we get we get 60, we get 90, 120, 150, and 180 before those angles start repeating again. So those are all the angles we use. With the zodiac 7, exact same concept. We use sort of just break the circle down into 7 equal pieces, as you see here, and each piece is 51.42 degrees. So in this case, what this would suggest is there's of course 102 and of course 135. But like these are the 3 angles that we be using, and it's much more synchronized in that terms. The reason why we also do this is because what we have found through our excessive research and testing is that the synchronization of patterns, if it's asymmetrical or symmetrical, have different strengths and values, and we notice whether these patterns is in one set, most often cases, if it's mixed alignments and it's forming a pattern, it's not really that strong. But if the pattern is usually of consistent with the exact same type of zodiac set, it's actually much more powerful in general. Plus, it's much more organized and easier to see if there's any patterns in general. So we'll be looking at the zodiac 7 in the heliocentric chart for Ludwig. And let me just filter this through. Filter that. Okay, let's look at Pluto. Okay, Orcus. So let's just filter this out. Orcus core. So Adonis. And Prometheus. Okay, let's just make sure. 4, 5. Pluto. Orcus. Ixion. That's what I was missing. Okay. 4, 5, 6. Okay, apply. I'm so sorry. I just gotta check something. Let's see. Okay. Real quick. I just want to double check on this. Come on. Okay. Okay, I think I found that. Crossroad. Sorry. I just want to double check on something real quick. Just see this quickly. Hopefully everything loads up rather quickly. Okay. Okay. That's all. Wanted to check. Anyways. So back to this. So, since we have found this synchronization of Orcus with Ludwig's heliocentric chart, we have Orcus interacting with Prometheus, which honestly does actually kind of confirm something I have that I'll share with you very soon. Quor, Pluto, Ixion, and Adonis. Now, as I have mentioned from my findings alone, Orcus is a very positive amplifier, at least in terms of improvement and prosperity. Now, it is interacting with Ixion, which is in fact been proven to be a amplifier as well, but definitely towards the positive perspectives. It shows and is also known as a overreaching celestial body. So what that is, it's meaning that it actually is generically one of the points we want to take in consideration if we're identifying best and worst astrological days, because it rules and interacts with pretty much every single random thing you could think of, from very positive to very negative, whether it's like of love and money, whether it's of relationships, it doesn't matter. Ixion is that powerful point you want to be looking at or taking considerations. Now, Pluto is also a point of success or intentions of success. This is actually very powerful because it is of like finances, big corporations, big business chops, and so forth. With Quor, it is a minor financial celestial body, but nonetheless financial still. But its associations with influencers is also of charisma, starship, well, stardom, and essentially being like very popular and very like positive, like influencer celebrity like situations and scenario. Um, Prometheus is associations with, from my findings so far, it is associated with essentially enlightenment, searching and finding truths. So in this case, at least for Ludwig, journalism as well. Adonis is associations with the concept of confidence, but also of being a handsome, manly man, or gorgeous, dapper, or rather a masculine like style of sorts. So, again, now bring in Orcus and we'll go further into each symbolism. So, immense improvement or advancement in essentially his sense of fashion, especially of like being very dapper with his good looks and so forth, advancement and growth, or his good looks, or how he makes himself seem very handsome or charming, who actually lead and help out with prosperity for him. Now, Ixion, again, is that amplifier, so immensely handsome or attractive. Again, immense success in terms of improving it as well. Also, of growing potential to being rather very like self motivated, mystical like abilities in terms of being attractive or finding ways to make himself stand out in that manner. Pluto is also part of this pattern, so immense success in general, or immense success in whatever he chooses to do, and this refinement is enriching or refine that success that he has. Also, this can associate with authority, so in other words, immense growth with his authoritative power or like structure is also helped out by his looks as well, so as he can make himself seem or appear to be looking the part of having power of sorts. Quor, which is known to be of charisma, as I mentioned before, being a rather dignitary or social influencer, or even of like celebrity like status. So prosperity and being rather charismatic, and along with also a overall like influencer or highly influential presence will be contributed or assisted by his good looks. So these are how these components are playing together with his success and how he chooses his career. So there's like a career of being a rather influencer or successful in that components, and also again that success or power from refining that ability with his looks as well. Orcus is also interacting with Prometheus, as I mentioned, is of enlightenment and searching for truths from my findings so far. And again, this also relates to journalism. So there's like Ludwig's association, where he managed to sums up the story, is actually a component where it helps him also refine that prosperity for him in some form of way, because those skills and abilities that were developed. And of course, this can lead to him being seen as rather an authoritative like figure or very successful and charismatic, and how he may summarize those stories if he chooses so to do. This can also suggest that his looks or his confidence may contribute rather well in how he approaches the process of finding enlightenment, and also how he essentially works into creating bullet points or summarizing the story as well. Now, with that component, I have yet to really see it being put into being of politics, but you kind of see in what ways the symbolism of Orcus can actually be rather applied. So let's pull in something rather different. So let's choose when Arizona was a U.S. territory. Now, unsure if you are aware with Arizonan history, but Arizona, it was originally became a U.S. territory. And for the longest time, throughout its history before it became a state, was actually applying for stateship, but was being rejected nonstop. The reason why it was being rejected was broken down to the mere fact that Arizona was too violent. And this is kind of very much true, because if you were to know anything of the Western like stories, most of those famous like cowboy Western criminals and all that, especially of the Wild West, most of those stories happened and did occur in Arizona. So it just kind of gave you an idea of just how much of like the immense like dangers that Arizona was able to give itself, or the reputation the state had, while Arizona at the exact same time was very progressive in terms of various like companies having various standards, where they didn't care what your gender or what race or ethnicity you were, as long as you were capable of doing the job, you're most likely given that job. So in that components, Arizona was very progressive, but it was known to be very violent overall. Now, let's pull up this synchronization in the geocentric alignments. Yeah, so just so you know, that this little thing you see here is just a little selections of points that I can pull up. This is sort of just celestial bodies that I can pull up, and these are the midpoints. Now keep in mind, it's not every single possible midpoint that can be graded with these celestial bodies, but it is a good portion. In fact, several hundreds, if not 1,000 or so. So lots of bodies to point to pick and choose from, but also it's not every single possible combination that's be of great use at times. Now, let's see. Orcus is interacting with Medusa. Now, with Medusa, new findings and reportings on that celestial body or asteroid suggests that it is of a nurturing, caring like nature. It is very much of finding common grounds. It's also of community. And let's see, it's interacting with Odin. Also, it is known to be a very positive component of essentially self improvement, or like how one's ability to have empathy for others. The ability to have empathy and to express it, how to take care of one another, the community, and very empathic. That's what Medusa has shown. So let's just look at this further. So Orcus, Arizona has that ability of showing the ability of being rather caring or nurturing towards its citizens, or in this case, in general, may have that feel of being caring or refine it over the time. Though, as I have mentioned, with Arizona, it usually was very much of community in the over sense of like the types of laws that we had established in the Wild West. For example, there was a very bizarre, kind of somewhat funny law on where there was a situation with a donkey being in a tub that's considered illegal. Why that was broken down to the fact that there was an immense flood that occurred, and actually the flood had picked up and taken this donkey miles away, and when it was retrieved, it was such a hassle to the point that Arizona decided to have rather unique laws in protecting the donkeys and also preventing them from being in tubs, especially during times of flooding seasons. Nowadays, that's not much of an enforced law, from my understanding, but still very much established and active, just not enforced. But it sort of shows some unique lights of how Arizona would develop various laws to sort of prevent the community from making rather questionable decisions from time to time. But what can occur as well, at least within Arizonan history, is we have a very strong refinement process in improving or creating or transforming that energy at the time to make some better improvements. What these improvements were typically in relations to Odin. Why? Because Arizona became very ideal with known as the 5 C's. These 5 C's is in relations to copper, cotton, citrus, climate, and also with cattle. As those 5 C's was immense creativity and improvement of that meant success for feeding and taking care of its citizens, and also creating some type of prosperity with those resources. So those are just some of the components of what Arizona had did that fall in line with this little interpretation. Now, let's go into an additional component, or chart really. let's pull in, let's see. Actually, let's see. I have an idea. Let's see if we could pull in a chart of someone who is current. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's pull up. Let me see if I have their chart first. Yeah. Let's pull up George Not Found. I know his reputation in the moment is not really, probably not ideal in the moment, but thought he may be of an interesting subject to go over overall if we were just to look at his Orcus. And let's look at the declinations for him. Hold on. Now, you may have noticed that for most of these charts, I have taken out the moon. The reason being is in terms of longitudes, the placements in the circle, is that the moon is actually a very fast moving point. What I use is 3-degree orbs. And just how fast the moon moves is actually 13 degrees per day. So if I do not know the time of birth, which George is a good example of this case, I am more likely to get an incorrect chart if we were to include the moon by default. So it is better off just to work with less information than to have more information that is inaccurate or can lead to inaccuracies. However, if we're looking at the declinations only, the moon is actually a lot more reliable because it moves about 1-ish degrees or so per day in terms of declinations. So this is how high north or south it moves. Well, longitudes is east to west. But as I mentioned, let's look for Orcus. Let's see, Orcus, where are you? There you are. Here it is. Okay, but in this case, an example, the moon is not interacting with Orcus. But if you are doing a chart analysis for yourself, this is a point that you may want to take in consideration from time to time. Now, let's see, there is Venus. We're going to be pulling up Orcus. We'll also be looking at the asteroid Isis, which Isis is actually another amplification point. And this one's also very positive as well. It is known as the path of fortune, in fact. So, the path of fortune, the golden path, the yellow brick road, it's also known as the rocket booster point as well. It is also the point of like general success, and also it is fraternal with Uranus. So the concepts of like fame, money, it's also known as the royalty point, or the self-made royal in this case. So Isis is a very positive point that you really want to take in consideration and have it one of your key points that you'd be looking into. Other key general points you also want to look into will be Jupiter, Saturn as well, just because it's very powerful points. Let's see, Isis and Phoenix, Odin, No Odin. Okay, just Phoenix. And Wahala. See, Wahala, Phoenix, Asus, Orcus, and Venus. Okay. Okay. With this synchronization over here, or this geocentric declinations, Orcus is interacting with Isis. So, in refinement or improvement of immense success and a public image of being seen as a royal of sorts. Self made to be exact. And of course, his path of fortune is relations to Phoenix. Phoenix, from my findings, is actually a very positive point. It's actually immensely positive. Think of it as sort of like one's joys, fulfillments, it is of success, and also from one of my friends and colleagues, they have found that Phoenix is also a very transformative point as well, also symbolic of rebirth in this case. Venus is obviously of beauty, it's also of luxuries, and also many other unique natures of that case. And again, with Wahala, it is of great power, great inner strength and courage. So what we can see here is a heavily refined form of great inner courage would lead into joy and success. And the unique thing with Phoenix is actually it's known to have a looping like situation. So what I mean is a positive mindset or joy will lead in towards success or help bring that. And that success inadvertently leads to more joy and happiness. And again, the happiness and all that leads to even more success. And it just loops into like that kind of cycle. With Phoenix interacting with Venus, again with cash flow, it is of jewels, luxuries, and source where we're seeing this very positive like trend. And again, this is getting refined because of Orcus and definitely enhanced to immense prosperity. And it's just cycling into this like manner. And it's definitely the path of fortunes and success that he needs to be a better person in terms of his content creation. And of course, this will lead to him being seen as very attractive because Venus is of beauty. So, path in relations to his beauty or natural fashionability. This will also lead to him being charming or him having a charming personality. This is very positive and actually will lead to immense success. And again, of him being very positive mindset individual or having that cheerful, optimistic like look would definitely be in his favor. We also see again Wahala, so his confidence in himself, in his looks, and how he truly feels being positive mindset as well is also contributing to this immense path of fortune, and it only refines itself as time progresses. So this is very powerful alignment as well. Wrong one. So let's look into another person's chart with Orcus. Or something. Let's see. Let's pull up. You know what? Let's pull up something very odd and actually kind of hilarious type of history. So, we're looking at the chart of the Great Emu War. Now, as ridiculous as that sounds, it is in fact a real thing. What occurred simply is after World War One, I believe it was, in Australia, they attempted to, the farmers started attempting to plant wheat. And as a result, it unfortunately brought in a unwanted guest, which is the emus. Reason why they occurred and started popping up in those designated farmlands was due to the fact that Australia was also dealing with a drought. As a result, these birds, they actually really loved wheat and was continuing to eat the livestock of the wheat so frequently to the point that farmers were trying to get rid of them in any possible way and failed miserably each time. And it wasn't just one, it was every single farmer within the area where the emus were at. As a result, they went to the government and complained. The government finally declared war on pretty much anything that had wings. In this case, they were referring to the emus. As a result, from this war, there was roughly, I want to say it was 22,000 or so emus. At the end, they only were able to get 12 to transition to the next existence of life. And on average, it took about 12 bullets per bird, which is insane. But of course, how they were doing it was once they started attacking the birds with various weapons, the birds almost immediately ran away with very little casualties. They also started attempting to have these weapons attached to vehicles as they were driving towards the birds, but these birds picked up eventually, actually very well quickly, in fact, that if they noticed these cars with these weapons attached, to alert the others heavily advanced. So they had scouts, these emus, of warning others so that they all ran away before they even arrived to the designated points. And the government of Australia, they had invested so much money at the time to the point that it was a massive loss, not only in terms of they were unable to get rid of the issue, but also financially speaking as well, it was immense loss. So that essentially is the summary of what happened at the Great Emu War. But let me show you the astrology components of why. And I already see an immense amount of positive alignments. And let me see, yeah. A lot of these positive alignments just amplify the negative, and I'll show you how and why that was. And like I said, this was like a very, very unique situation. It's very interesting on the choice. Like, if you were to look this up in greater detail for yourself, you actually see there's so many things that were logically it makes sense of why this would fail just on the surface, but they still tried it and yet they still failed. And it's honestly the most hilarious thing one could even just read about. And there's so many like unique documents too. I could probably find maybe a different time. In fact, so sorry, but this was without a doubt a very interesting like war if we're talking about in terms of history. Like, there's many dramatic failures, but this was definitely like the most entertaining one in my opinion. Well, one of the many. There's so many of these. Let's see. Yeah, I found like several points already looking at this. Okay, UV313. Saturn Chiron midpoint. Yeah, that's definitely a dead. Definitely a Chiron Ixion. Really? Hmm. Let's see. let's filter this out. Okay, Odin, Chiron, Ixion, midpoint. The Saturn Chiron midpoint. We have UB313. We have Orcus. Let's see, Orcus, Ixion, Pallas, Chiron, Saturn, Venus, and Mercury. Apply. Okay, now, as we see here, we have the Star of David pattern synchronization. What this symbolize here? Supplying only. So what we have here is Orcus is in conjunction or conjoining with Odin, and both are interacting with Saturn. As I have mentioned, in this case, this is an event chart, so the negative components of Saturn is definitely going to be popping out to the fullest, and you'll see how. Orcus, as I mentioned, is a refinement. Now, usually it is very positive, especially with this alignment right here of Odin, which is immense success. However, since Saturn is a part of this alignment, we see a quote, rather a decline of the refinement because Saturn, and a crystallization of problems which prevents success or being rather the disputed winner in this case. We also see Saturn interacting with Ixion, which is of a positive influence or a universal, like positive influence of like building towards one's potential. In this case, it is building towards the potential of failure because of Saturn. And this is only amplified because of Orcus and Odin as well, of the immense failure it is. Saturn is also interacting with the Chiron Ixion point, which is again one's public image, and again the amplification of being that potential, but in this case the potential of being a massive failure. And also it is interacting with the Saturn Chiron midpoint. Saturn is the crystallizations of problems, in this case a bad public image because of the midpoint of influence of Chiron. So bad public image is dampening the positive public image or influence. And again, this is only getting amplified with the additions of Orcus and Odin. We also are seeing UB313, so in other words, something new or interchangeable. And again, it is interacting with a financial planet and a minor financial planet. So in other words, we see here an immense sort of like polar opposites or stress and tensions with money and finance. As I mentioned before, it was a financial drain to attack these birds, and Australia had lost quite a fortune on it. Now, over here as well, this is a Mercury. Mercury is a travel, so as I mentioned, of vehicles being used or communication was also having stress or tensions, which put the refinement of process being very against them. Whether they improved it, there was always some type of communication or form of travel, whether it's from the birds or the vehicles that they've chosen, was always at a downfall. Pallas, which is a planning, and again, Venus is of like working together or communication, was not the greatest at all. In fact, it very much worked against them, as you can see here. We also see that Saturn is interacting with Mercury, so in this case, a lack of discipline or a lack of communicative skills or a lack of some sort of planning did not work out very well. And again, this only amplified the negative influence or massive failure of this type of like situation. Like they could have done better, but things just unfortunately just didn't work out that way. And this is just a massive problem for them. We're also seeing here that Mercury is interacting with UB313, so unique communication skills, or something that's new. So there's the emus learning to pick up the information and also using this new form of like scout like system to inform others of the possible danger. That's definitely one of them. Or we can also see like the new sense of information being developed because of this new sense of information, or like the ability of some type of skill definitely working against them, which was in case the emus learning how to communicate better in contrast to the humans. This didn't work out very well for them, and this is heavily amplifies how and why. And again, this is all just heavily refinements. Better for the animal, but not so great for the government. That's just how like that failure came to be. Now, let's look up a new type of chart. So let's choose Chuckles the Clown. Now, if you're unfamiliar with D&D, which is a role-playing game, there is a particular group that does D&D content. And where Chuckles is from, he is one of their many characters. This group is known as Legends of Avantris. From the person who plays Chuckle, his name is Mikey, from my understanding. He is one of the many individuals that do or plays the role of a dungeon master. And this particular chart is of one of his characters, which is known as Chuckles the Clown. Now, how I was able to obtain Chuckles' birth chart, since he is a fictional character created by someone else, this is the sort of logic that I use, which is known as theory of natalization. So a creation or birth of something, whatever that is, everything has a birth chart. So in this case, for something like a new character, especially in D&D content, a character is usually created when they make their first words or how they are officially developed. The final product, essentially. So in this case, it was how Chuckles was brought about was he said a phrase that I had chlamydia. Yeah, just let that process. He said that. And that very line was the very much birth of this character, Chuckles the Clown. Now, the reason why he said this was he's supposed to be a character that was unalived by one of the characters in the party. And he's supposed to be talking to the person who unalived him. So Chuckles the Clown from time to time will be popping up throughout the entire campaign, entire storyline, where he says the most interesting, unhinged things throughout the entire campaign. But this very first time where this occurred, or his voice or the character popping up, was on August 31st, 2022. And this is more of an approximate time date because I was not present when this character was born. But based on their current streaming patterns and so forth, because this was on a stream, the closest time from the video when it was edited of this particular stream put me at a time of roughly 8:18 p.m. for where they were located. Now, that is sort of how I got Chuckle's birth chart. I approximate it basically based upon the video, and I also take in considerations of any and all possible times that they have edited. So, like whether it was like a moment of silence and things of that nature, I took that in consideration to give a close enough approximation. So, this is the most accurate type of chart I can get. Now, a reason why you may also want to do this if you're creating characters is, let's say if you want to do merchandising with these characters and so forth, you would sort of want them to be, excuse me, excuse me, um, what you want to do is you sort of want to at least get the date itself of these characters. If not, you could try to get the close enough approximation like I did here as well, if that is possible. Reason being because if you do so, you can actually predict trends of like when these characters, their merchandise and stuff like that, can actually reach a highest or be a best and or worst time to create and sell merchandise basing on the character. And also you can use these charts to also predict, would this character be very liked upon the public? Would they actually get along, like have a strong fandom as well? Or would it be very minimal, if not non-existent? Or would this character just be one of the key factors that would just destroy whatever it is that you initially originated to try to do? So that's sort of the reason why you want to get these charts from time to time. But in this case, we're looking for Orcus in Chuckles the Clown's chart. So let's pull this up and see his synchronization. I need to stop doing that. Let's see. It is of Chiron, Orcus, Chiron, Lilith. Chiron, Lilith. We have Orcus, Achilles. Okay, the Saturn, Jupiter midpoint. Isis, and Jupiter Chiron. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, Jupiter Chiron, we have Isis, we have the Saturn, Jupiter midpoint, we have Achilles, we have Orcus, we have Lilith, we have Chiron. Okay. Yeah, so let's filter that through. Okay. So right here, as you can see, we have, okay, yeah, that's fine. So as we can see here, with Chuckles the Clown, for his Orcus synchronization, is immense improvements and immense path of fortune, symbolized by Isis. So, as we can see here, the path of fortune is the refinement or improvement upon the character itself. We have Lilith, which is, as I mentioned, the symbolism of a demon in some cases, or very depressing, very negative, and all that. Which, if we're talking about the context of what Chuckles say on a regular basis, this is actually very consistent because he says the most unhinged things ever. Whether it is like I mentioned, like he says he has chlamydia, or he says something like he wished there was wine in hell, or that he has taken another fellow fallen clown to the depths of hell, and things of that nature. Like, it is very unhinged. which is consistent with Lilith. And also a unique thing about Lilith is the fact that it's of dark humor, which is what the context of what Chuckles say often in this case. And again, this is the path of fortune. So the path of fortune for Chuckles is very much of like this constant use and bringing the mentionings of like dark humor, whether it's through puns or some other case. And again, this is immensely improved positive public image because of this rather unique, twisted like behavior of like the dark humor is what brings Chuckles into a positive like why everyone loves him and so forth. And again, it's also interacting with Jupiter Chiron midpoint. So in other words, like immense success in terms of just how this clown is so bizarre and very unhinged with this dark, twisted sense of humor is just so very amplified in this case. Now, of course, we also see with the Saturn Jupiter midpoint. So this suggests that like Chuckles or the clown, he may be very polarized, or like you see two opposites competing at the exact same time. Very depressing and yet somehow very positive and cheerful. Very like extremely dark desires, and yet at the exact same time may show some concepts of being very intelligent. Because like the very dark desires, he may do something like very violent behavior, but again, it's consistent with the concept of the clown. But then like this positive, like extremely positive intelligence will be like it through the puns, and it's interacting with Achilles. So there's like we see immense improvement or refinement in terms of like the persistence of what Chuckles does and what he says and do, because he's so extreme that this character constantly just brings in new more puns to the point that like it is just crazy for most people if they were to deal with this in real life. But obviously, this is a character, so that's not the case. And yet, this bizarre bipolar like tendencies of very positive yet very evil or very like negative like components. It's the unique charm of what brings this clown together. And that's the persistent thing that always will stick by, and why this clown is so beloved at the exact same time is because of that. But that is just some of the things that you can get from just the D&D chart, at least when this character was first brought up into to its existence. But that is rather the unique thing as well, in my opinion, if we're talking about how this character acts and is, and even in the stars, this character very much proven that point. So let's look at another chart. So let's look into the chart of, let's choose Luli Pichu. Okay, so Orcus is interacting with Lilith. So let's pull up all these points again, just so we can see the pattern in much more fuller detail. And let's look at, hold on, let me just pull this down. So sorry, my eye was just bothering me out of nowhere. Let's pull up and look at her heliocentric latitudes. So we take out the sun and moon, because we're not going to be looking at those points either way. I'm going to get rid of the north node. And we'll just see the synchronizations that she has. Through the space. Cheap viewers on streamboo.com. Okay. Not too sure what you mean by that. Okay. Well, oh yeah, I already did that. Okay, let's see here. Heliocentric, yes. Okay, Orcus, where is it? Here it is. Okay, there's no synchronization with that. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, well, let's look at the heliocentric latitude sense. Not latitudes, longitudes. Since there's not much of a synchronization in terms of the latitudes. So let's see, there's Mercury, Uranus. We would pull in Ceres. Let's keep that. Looking at Eros. Okay, Orcus. Orcus. Senna. Pull in Achilles. Dionysus. Midas. Odin. And Wahala. Let's see. Okay, Wahala, Odin, Midas, Dionysus, Achilles, Senna, Orcus, Eros, Pallas, Ceres, Uranus, Mercury. Okay. Okay, I'm not too sure what that's pulling up. Anyways, so let's double check that. Okay. Okay, so with Midas, we have yet to discuss what that point is. But as you probably suspected, actually, Midas is actually one of the most powerful financial celestial points. What that means is you have immense luck when it comes to making money. You have immense luck in it. You also have like the golden touch in a metaphorical perspective. You have the golden touch. But in this case, heavily refinement and improvements is what leads to this golden touch. And this golden touch is in relations to her ability of being a content creator, the persistence, the heavily amounts of work, the determination to this. It's what leads to the immense success and immense growth of this luck and money. And also the ability is also in relations to Dionysus. Dionysus is also is a charismatic celestial body, but also it's of politics or political like power. So in this case, like it shows that she has an authoritative like power, and this is contributes to her ambitions and how she proceeds to be persistent in her content creation. Also, it is interacting with Orcus, which is a amplification of like immense success, immense luck, immense finances, success in anything really. So like we see heavily refinement and abilities in making money, and this is all due to the fact that like she has immense luck in creating a form of like authoritative like space or situation. We also see authoritative or like strength and power or there's her ambitions in being a content creator or in the content creation space. And again, is interacting with also Valhalla, so immense courage and self esteem as well is heavily amplified into how she improves her upon herself in making money as a content creator. We also see that Dionysus is also interacting with Ceres. Ceres is also a financial celestial body. It's of finances, business. It's more of business first, then emotions and all that later, but it's not really emotion wise. It can be rather unethical from time to time, but usually it's driven by a business like mindset. So, like, it's nothing personal, but it's all business. That is sort of like how Ceres functions. And also, it's a neutral benefactor. So, it doesn't matter what it is interacting with, it'll just amplify the effects of the celestial bodies. Luckily, portions of these are actually very positive or neutral themselves. So, we'll see a net positive or just ordinary amplification of these components as well for Lily. So we see immense financial success in terms of Eros as well. So what this symbolizes, it's actually of like passion, it's of like impulses and so forth. It doesn't really think, but it goes based upon impulses, passions, and even like how one feels. It's also of like using energy, especially to the max. So in this case, this is immense. Like her attentions and finances is also in relation to how she reacts with her passions. And again, this also gives her additional like authoritative like influence in terms of how she uses her influences in terms of her inner strength in working towards being a rather unique individual, especially in the content creating space. And again, this is now also interacting with Uranus. Uranus, as I mentioned, is like a fame, high-end technology. It is of online. It is of space exploration. Well, astronomy and astrology. It's also of associations with the components of, let's say, space travel and also flight. It's also as associations with like radio, broadcasting, streaming, like I mentioned before, and just anything that can be globalized and shared, spread across the entire world. Excuse me. But that's just what like some of the symbolisms of what Uranus shows. And Uranus is also interacting with Senna, so like her immense ambitions towards like fame and popularity, also with the ambitions of like interacting with her authoritative power or displaying that to sort of give herself like some sort of an edge, where there's like the ability to like confine her emotions if needed, is like those components of like her type of success, and it helps her be level minded in order to work towards making more money or succeeding in her career in this case. Also, we see Mercury is part of the pattern as well, though it's kind of segregated in some various ways, but it's still overall part of the pattern. So with Mercury, it is of like communications, as I mentioned before. It's of travel. It's of, believe it or not, actual explorations as well, both of space or land or in caves or whatever the case may be. It's also another technology planet. It's also a symbolism of also online. So we see heavily in refinements or mid success online is what contributes to that. And again, online as well. So we see the content creator really popping up in Lily's chart with this synchronization. But how that would be will be broken down to she needs to make herself very, I guess you'd say, have a strong self esteem and confidence in herself. This will contribute very immensely to her ability of being a content creator from time to time. Or at least it'll be a very helpful, handy tool for her. So those are just some of the synchronizations for her in that component. Let's look at another chart. Let's pull up Anthony Padilla's. Check that out. Let's keep on pulling these up. Apply. Okay. Let's see. pull up here. Geocentric, Zodiac 7. So, as we can see here, let's pull up Orcus once again, because we're focusing on Orcus only. Okay, let's look at Venus. Pull up Jupiter, Uranus, Ixion. Wait, not Uranus. Is it? Oh my goodness, I forgot its celestial body. Or did I? Yeah, it's not Uranus. I didn't forget it. My bad. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Let's see. Urania, Orcus. Now, Quar. Let's see. Adonis. Now, as you can already see here, at least based on my findings so far, haven't really found much situations where the concept of a regime could pop up. The only time I could think of will be of like the Great Emu War, as I mentioned, and even if, let's say, Lily Pichu had some relations into politics, if that's the case, then she would count. But other than that, there's not many examples where a regime could pop up or something in relation to politics could occur. But I'll pull in a couple politicians, whether they're positively liked or not, doesn't matter. They're a politician nonetheless. But if that was also the case, it should have also reflected in these other individuals' charts regardless. Adonis, Quar, okay, Ixion, that's why. Okay. Now, apologies. Okay. So with Orcus, it is interacting with Jupiter. So as I had mentioned, Orcus is of heavenly refinement, improvement, prosperity. Jupiter is of the horn of plenty. So we can see like this is immensely prosperous alignment for Anthony Padilla. Both heavily in properties in relations to Venus. Venus, as I mentioned before, is of relations to beauty, and so is Adonis, which is right here. So we can see here that Anthony Padilla is actually, astrologically speaking, heavily blessed with being very attractive. He is very charming. He is very confident in himself as well. He's also very have many features where he can balance both the masculine and feminine beauty as well if he wants to. But this is heavily shows us like how blessed and heavily like all these different alignments are popping in his favor. We also have Urania, part of the pattern. Now, from mine and also my colleagues' findings, we have found that actually Urania kind of acts like somewhat similar to Uranus, where it has has strong associations with some astrology. We also have found components like it's also another enhancement to success, or helps improve and bring in success. So meant bring in help with success through cash flow and also beauty and masculine beauty. And these also the heavily refinements in relations to core and ixion. As I mentioned before, ixion is also another amplification point where it leans towards heavily positive influences. Also, what this suggests is that ixion is also helping out with also the rating with like the positive components of what core can bring. So as I mentioned, the core is of influences of like positive influences and so forth. Like it is very positive to the point that like he has a positive, strong influence because of his looks, and also this contributes to like the fact that like he knows how to be charming, he has to be funny. His sense of humor is very well liked and influential. And also this is just contributes to like he has talent plus he has the looks type of ordeal. And Orcus is just highlighting that part of his life. Let's pull up another individual's chart. Let's pull up Blouse. Or originally Blaustoys, now just Blau. Let's pull up his chart and see what synchronizations or patterns he has. Mercury, Venus, da, da, da. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know immediately. Like, I wouldn't mind helping you out in terms of you're interested in astrology, or you're a skeptic, or you want to learn something else. If you want to focus on a different celestial body, let me know. I am here to help. Yeah, let's look at the zodiac. It's 12. Let's pull up on. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Geocentric declinations. I don't. Well, this might be interesting, actually. Yeah, let's pull this up so I can show you on his geocentric declinations. Okay, I need to pull up Pluto and Sappho. Pluto, Sappho, Athena. Okay, we got those points. Let me just double check once I'm done with this. Okay, we have Athena, we have Orcus, we have Sappho, we have Pluto. Okay. Now, right here, as you see, we have the strong synchronization of these four celestial points. Now, as I mentioned, Orcus, as I constantly said before, advancements and improvements and growth. It's also of prosperity and embellishments. We have Pluto. This is a financial celestial body. It's of power, it's of control, it's of wanting to be successful and the intentions of success. We have Athene. This is of like clear sense, one clear mindedness. It's of intelligence, it's of logic, and quote, working what they call mind. We also have Sappho, which this is in symbolisms of neurotic like behavior. This is all like neurological brain functionality, one's conjugative abilities from time to time as well. So what this suggests is for terms of success, he needs to be refining his abilities to have a clear mind, whether he is following some neurological findings or studies to train his brain or his behavior into being, like, say, improving his mindset, essentially, or his brain behavior, so that he can improve and refine it so that it leads to his intentional success. Because he probably, based on this chart, he has many components that factor in massive success. However, what this also could suggest is that though he may have the natural talents and the abilities and knowledge and know how to do so, it most likely was that he has to train his mind or his brain in some cases to actually put into action of those success or the pathway of success, or develop the ability to, like, first think about it, let his emotions be put aside for a bit, then act upon it. And then, of course, this also could suggest that, like, without thinking, he will have a clear sense or an idea to process the information and to whether proceed with it or not. In this case, to proceed if it will bring him some type of intent of success, or bring him some sort of power or financial success for his career. And again, this only just improves as time progresses. Excuse me. Let's pull up another chart. And let's pull up the chart of AOC. And yeah, let's choose her heliocentric chart. And I will be back real quick. Hold on. Okay, I am back. So let's pull this back up. Okay, so we're looking at Mars, Neptune, Chiron, Ceres, Pallas, Vesta. So no Juno, Lilith, Orcus, Senna, Saturn, Chiron, midpoint, Nike, Prometheus, Ulysses, and Xanthus. Xanthus, Ulysses, Prometheus, Nike, Saturn, Chiron midpoint. This is Senna, Orcus, Lilith, Vesta, Pallas, Ceres, Chiron, Neptune, and Mars. Okay. So, as we see here, with the synchronization, we could see here that Orcus is interacting with Ulysses. Now, with this point, what I and my friend slash colleague have found is that this celestial body actually has some strong influences when it comes to essentially being, quote, like the inventor in their basement, creating or crafting new things. This is more of like the scientific mindset where sort of almost anything to various degrees would go, but it's with intention and well thought out to truly see if the plan works out. And sometimes they create a whole new system that actually works perfectly functioning well because it's had been tested, thought out very well on its own like manner. Now this point is interacting with Orcus, so as we see a refinement in creating new processes or laws. Because again, we're talking about AOC here, who is a politician, and Orcus is also interacting with Senna and Xanthus. Now, Senna and Xanthus are two very negative points. However, in this case, because it's a birth chart and also the fact that they're also in positive alignments, reduces the likelihood of also them manifested in a very negative perspective. So we see in this case immense amount of ambitions and success and leading towards sort of like wanting to be the best in terms of their positions. With Xanthus, it is more like impulses based upon the components of sort of like going with the impulses without thinking of the consequences. Because while Eros it is based on impulses, it would think and take in considerations the consequences of what those things would do. Xanthus doesn't think of that. It only thinks of what it sounds good or is good in the moment. But in this case, working towards what being success, working towards like succeeding and actually having that determination and drive without much thinking of it. But it's also that much thinking is more of like if an idea is truly as good, there's not much thought in terms of abandoning it. So what I'm trying to say is sort of the concept of you have a good idea. You know it's very good because you have thought of it very well and meticulously planned it through and through. There's nothing really holding her back in terms of like hesitation because she knows it's going to succeed. And this plan or these laws or programs or whatever the case may be is going to work out well. She knows it is. And she's wanting to push it to make it happen because it's a good plan. That's in this case what is happening in this little minor synchronization over here. Now we add in Nike and Chiron. Again, Chiron is sort of like dealing with the general public, the positive public image. And also, Nike is another celestial body that is very competitive as well. And also, since we're at it, might as well throw in Ceres, which is also a competitive point, but also isn't linked to finances. So there's like a lot of these laws and plans, they're actually well thought out, but usually in relations to sort of like planning, especially in a positive public assistance, which gives her a positive like image. Because she actually plans these things through and know whether they will work or not, or is willing to improve them as time progresses, gives her a rather positive public image. And this competitive nature of trying to push shit through also gives her the additional edge. And again, it's in relations to finances. So, in other words, like finding the funds or finding the necessary ways that will succeed and improve these things. Also, she will find those various ways. Ulysses is also interacting with Pallas. So there's like these things are heavily based on plannings, timing, and so forth. So that will be the key event that will bring this type of success. Now, yes, it is interacting with Saturn Chiron, but in this case, Saturn is of, like I mentioned, control. So in this case, control over the public. So a politician point, this would also be technically considered as. So there's like this shows that she is immensely well suited to being a job, well suited to the job of being a politician. Again, because also Senna also does take in some considerations of being a politician, and Chiron to various degrees, very minor, but it does contribute some points to politics. Now Vesta, it's usually a symbolism of charities and nonprofit groups. So in this case, like the building and planning and designing nonprofits or programs or safety nets of sorts to help the public. Those is what she most likely be very good at planning, designing, and creating, and even acting and pushing upon if needed. Prometheus is of search of truth, of course, and also is interacting with Neptune, which is of, quote, the land, or in this case, the country of the United States, or her district region. So there's like, she is very well informed. She'll actually even fact check a lot of her stuff about the land and programs, about the land before she creates the programs, or customize it to how it is needed based on the data. And again, Lilith is over here, so this signifies that she is most likely working or doing this by herself most of the time, or with her team, or crafting and creating a sort of background process that will present this positive image in the background. Mars, in this case, is the will or drive. So, again, that competitive energy and that heavy, strong force is pushing and bulldozing this through, where she is not going to back down no matter what. But, of course, if a compromise is necessary, it may not happen, but it can occur from time to time. But usually, she is a very strong-willed individual, no matter what. And this also leads to immense amount of success and prosperity and only improves in time. So in other words, she's also an individual who's also less likely to, quote, stand down to a bully, but she will stand up to them. Now let's pull up another chart. Let's see. Baby No Money with his Orcus. So let's see Wahala. Pull up all these other points. Uranus, Pluto, and Juno. Apply. Okay. Let's pull up his Orcus. Hold on. This is going to be real quick. Oh god, where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Okay. Oh, okay. Mercury. We have Mars. Diana. Diana. We have Icarus. Orcus. Senna. Achilles. We also have Adonis. Midas. We have Phoenix and Xanthus. Okay, Xanthus, Phoenix, Midas, Adonis, Achilles, Senna, Orcus. We have Icarus, Diana, Mars, and Mercury. Okay. Okay. Everything transferred over properly. Okay. So let's see over here. So with Orcus, we have a conjunction of Xanthus. So in this case, we see again like those impulses, like without really thinking, is actually going to be very much refined and work well in his favor in some form of way as time progresses. No, they're both quincunxing, which is this blue lines right here. Icarus. Now with Icarus, it is symbolic of natural disasters of any sorts, but also it is symbolic of cautions and warnings. So, in other words, without thinking, if he is not careful, he can actually lead himself to something too very negative with excessive consequences. So he needs to be cautious about that. Otherwise, he will be in some situations where it quote bite him in the ass almost nonstop. But if since Mercury is over here and also since Mercury is a key point that all these points are interacting with, that means is how he conveys or speaks what he thinks. This can intentionally or inadvertently be what causes him to essentially be in constant situations. So his opinions or thoughts of various individuals or situations could put him in a lot of hot water from time to time, if not thought out well. Or how he conveys it may cause some type of misunderstandings. But Mercury is interacting with Midas, and Mercury is of communication and sound. In other words, it's a part of music and also of film because those are stories and forms of communications. So we could see that as a content creator or even as a musician, he has a strong ability to make money. But of course, he needs to be cautious with it because Diana is also included with this. So this could suggest that his naivety, if not thought well, could lead him into hot water and how he conveys it. But his naivety or his blessings, if thought well, can actually lead very favorable amounts of help for him. Adonis and Mars, so this strongly suggests that improvements of quote being a manly man and very attractive actually works very well in his favor and actually could lift him up from these negative components if they do manifest and fester. And also, he has an immense amount of drive, so he would say or act quickly without thinking. Phoenix is also part of this pattern, so also Achilles. With Phoenix, as I mentioned before, it is a very positive components, optimism, success, and also the looping scenario of optimism leading to more success, leading to more optimism and positive mindsets and so forth, and it just loops upon to that. Also a rebirthing like process, or in this case, success as making money as a singer or even a content creator. And again, inadvertently, the success would be in relations to what he does or say or do without really thinking much of the consequences. As long as they are thought out or proceed with caution, it works out very well in his favor. Not only that, also his looks would help contribute to his success as well. And that persistence of like focusing on his work and also with his looks or how he may be perceived by others, and is also his self-confidence as well, all inadvertently contributes to his positive like mindset and also to his own success as well. Senna is also part of this pattern, so this also suggests that he is also very ambitious and willing to do the work. It also suggests that he is very determined as well to actually be the top of the top, or the best of the best in this case, in terms of being a musician. So those are just some of the alignments, well, some of the interpretations that this could suggest as well. Let's pull up another individual. Let's look at you know what? Let's pull up Dead Squirrel. So, for those of you that do not know, Dead Squirrel is a faceless YouTuber or streamer, or mostly faceless, really. But they do stream with Delirious Cartoons and Kyle, or HTO Delirious, really. And I have his birth chart. Let me just pull up everything first, and we'll look at his Orcus as well. Let's see, Orcus. It's not really. Mm, yeah, let's pull up this one. This pattern. So let's pull. Venus, Saturn, Chiron, Orcus, Ixion, Orcus, Achilles, Adonis, Chiron, Ixion, midpoint, Nike, and Wahala. Nike, Wahala, Chiron, Ixion, midpoint, Adonis, Achilles. We have Orcus, Ixion, Chiron, Saturn, Venus. Okay, as you can see here, this is a very powerful, almost perfectly symmetrical, multi-conjoined celestial point. So this is a very powerful potent point in Scroll's heliocentric chart. And obviously this is in the Zodiac 7. So with this, we have Orcus interacting with Nike and Achilles. These 2 points together are actually very competitive, so we can see immense prosperity or refinements based on some type of competitive like nature, especially with his persistency. Now, Orcus is also interacting with Wahala, which is Swift's inner strength and inner courage, of course, with also Saturn, which Saturn is of strength, disciplines, or practice makes perfect like mentality, or like a bulldozer like mentality. So we could already get an idea that with Squirrel, he is very determined and also willing to actually refine his ambitious doings or his goals. And he is very confident in how he will do it, which is practice make perfect. And this is heavily going to be refined as time progresses. And it's interacting with Venus with all of these points, or most of these points. So it's like his competitive nature and inner courage is driven to his own charisma, his charm, and also his ability to make money based upon his own persistency. Now, this persistence like ability not only is helping him make money or gain money, but also is a positive amplifier, which is building his talents and success. And also the Chiron Ixion point is also a positive public image as it amplifies as he is refining his ambitions to succeed in whatever it is he's doing. In this case, it's in relations to Chiron, which Chiron, as I mentioned, is of fame and success, and also of entertainment. And in this case, working in the entertainment industry as a content creator, again, with this fame and ability to make money and cash flow from it, and also this competitive nature, refining and defining his new rules and all that, and also making himself seem very confident and having self confidence as well, and that inner strength to do so, whether it's streaming or even if it's just a simple YouTube video or other content that he creates. It's all just heavily amplified based upon his refinement and discipline in terms of being very competitive, want to be better and improve as an individual, or at least improve as a content creator, and just refining that process as time passes. And this will lead to immense prosperity for him. So let's look into another chart. Let's choose Gab Smolders. let's pull up all the necessary points once again. And we would pull this up again. I'm not even bothered with that. Let's look at the geocentric, I mean. Oh my god. And pull up her Orcus. Okay, so Vesta Lilith. Lilith Ixion. Orcus Core. Saturn Chiron. Saturn Chiron. Jupiter Chiron. Cleopatra. Wahala. Okay, so we have Wahala, we have Cleopatra, Jupiter Chiron midpoint, Saturn Chiron midpoint, Quar, Orcus, Ixion, Lilith, Vesta. Apply. So, what we have here is, as I mentioned, plenty of times that should be, well, very much hammered into your head at this point, or nailed in, whatever the saying is at this point. Refinement, advancement, growth, and prosperity. So, immense prosperity, growth, is in relations to a super successful public image or a favorable public image. And this public image is in relations to how she worked by herself from time to time, by working alone, or developing or doing things in the background and successfully doing it well. Excuse me. It is also interacting with the Saturn Chiron midpoint. So, in other words, this public positive image is most likely due to her ability to have some sort of control or influence over the public. This is also in relations to her ability to have this type of strong inner strength and will in improving and refining. But also, this also has even more additional influence with Vesta, which is of being friendly. This is of like altruism, sharing and caring for others. This is what her power over the public is, or at least what works well in her favor. It's because she is like this to various degrees, is how she is able to obtain this power and actually achieve and have a positive public image. And again, this only improves and leads to prosperity for her as well. These points are all interacting with, or mostly with, Ixion, which is another positive influence or amplification of these tributes, which leads her to a new form of success as well. Cleopatra is also part of this pattern. Cleopatra is of seduction or making things rather enticing. So there's like her positive or friendly like attitude makes her rather appealing to the public. And again, this is creating a high level or contributing to her type of charisma. This charisma with, again, being very enticing and a very positive influence of being friendly is what contributes to her success and having immense control over the public. It leads to prosperity in its own unique manner. sir. So, as long as she is very positive and altruistic, caring, and giving, it will contribute greatly to the success of doing whatever she wants to do. Now let's pull up another chart once I'm done with pulling all these other points up. Let's just pull these points all together. And let's look at a different viewing. Again, if you have any questions, let me know and I would help you with that. If these questions are relations to like how you read a chart, to the basics, or if you're following along, let me know if this is helpful or not. Because I do know that what I'm pulling is a lot of information and throwing a lot of information at you as well. This is so much. But hopefully you're seeing the accuracy level and like how all of these symbolisms, though it is constantly consistent and so forth, it works no matter what, despite what your opinions are on the individual. It's always working consistently. So let's pull up Broden's chart real quick. Okay, now let's focus on Orcus. Where is Orcus? Let's just pull up his geocentric zodiac 12. I'm just going to take all these points out because just to make my life a little easier without having to look. Venus, okay, just leaving Jupiter. Okay, Venus, Jupiter, Ceres. Orcus, Senna, Hermes, Chiron, Ixion, Phoenix, and Prometheus. Okay. Now, let's look over here. And as you can see, Orcus is definitely like of refinement, growth, and prosperity. And again, is interacting with Ceres. Ceres and Senna are both financial celestial bodies. They both also relations to success in some way. So again, financial success and ambitions towards being prosperous. And again, this also in relation to Venus, another financial point, and also Phoenix, another success point, Jupiter, success and finances point as well. The Chiron Ixion, financial. So, as you can see here, this is already heavily influenced by finances and leads to immense success in making money in some form of way. Now, he is also making money due to his charm. He is naturally attractive. He is also very ambitious, willing to work and be the best that he can be. Also, this is of help from like the other world, whether it was he directly or indirectly asked, or not even asked at all. The other world or dimension is also in his favor. And of course, he may be part of some sort of like have some sort of like secret knowledge that no one has, or develop some skills that no one has known about. Hence, he uses it as his factor to gain even more success if needed or wanted. Also, Phoenix again, a very positive mindset is what causes this ambition. So he is approaching this with a very positive mindset, which is leading to more financial success and happiness down the road. And again, this Phoenix is also interacting with Jupiter, so again, even more positivity and very positive public image in working towards his ambitions, which is filmmaking and many other things. We also see Prometheus and others like he is searching for truth, knowledge, or some type of wisdom. So again, this is also interacting with Ceres, so others like truth, knowledge, wisdom, or he's using information that he finds and knows that is true. That helps him to give him an additional edge in terms of gaining success or some type of advantage. We also see here that Ixion and Chiron is part of the mix because of the midpoint, which is right here. So again, this is part of like the situation of like he is definitely blessed with a very positive public image. He is working very hard. He is without a doubt very blessed financially speaking and with his hard work. And also his looks and charms and all that. Yes, they're there, but they're only small pieces to the puzzle of him working and being a better content creator, or in this case, like being good at directing, making films, and so forth. Like, this is the key points. Small key points, but it all, again, loops into like success and finance. Financial success is what this what all leads to. So let's pull up another point. You know, what was the point of doing this? Apply. Yeah. After this chart, I'm definitely probably going to end the stream for the time being, but let's look at another chart. Let's pull up. Let's pull up the chart of QT. Okay, let's see. Where is Orcus? Here it is. Hmm. Let's pull this up. Yeah, I always do this. Okay, so let's look into Neptune. Neptune and yeah, Neptune, Pluto, Ixion, Orcus, and Core. Okay, now with Orcus, as again, it is of associations with growth and prosperity. It is of advancement, improvements, and so forth. And it is interacting with Pluto, which is the intentions of success, business chops, finances, and just like business, big time businesses or corporations or general success in the career. So you can see her career, she's definitely going to be growing immensely and also be refining it as time progresses and improving that attention of success for that. Ixion, which is building up to her potential, which is also being refined. And also her skills and talents and so forth is also going to be refined as time progresses. It's going to improve and grow as well. We're going to see improvements and growth, and again, with charisma and influence and so forth. This is again is definitely going to be the components. Now with Neptune, Neptune is sort of like of not only just of long-term financial security, but also it is of like talents in terms of like cooking as well, or dealing with food and nutrition. So again, like we see the cooking abilities, the creative manners of that, and the potentials of being, let's say, like an online chef or an influential chef or an individual who is like very caring and like very like easygoing. That is also her components of her charisma, and that's just going to be contributes to like the growth of the success because she's rather caring. She has natural beauty. She knows how to cook and so forth. She's also immensely creative as well because Neptune rules creativity. All these components can actually contribute to her immense growing of success as well, especially in relations to like being a skill set. It contributes to also being like a talent and also contribute to like her likability and her charisma as well. So that's like some of the interpretations that we can get just based on this pattern alone for QT Cinderella. And those are just all the possible interpretations I could think of in the moment. If you do like this little stream, let me know in the comments. Till then, I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Till then, see all of you soon. Bye.